Hi, this is my video reflection for World History Table of Contents. As I looked at these table of contents for the two document sets provided, I realized that the documents are grouped according to area. They're grouped according to ancient Greece or ancient Rome or the Fertile Crescent, and then later medieval Europe, all different areas like that. Specifically for the document sets in world history, the documents are all grouped according to area. This seems to be a common way of organizing historical units because each area has already been organized by historians past. But I find this interesting because it doesn't really help students understand that regional histories are often occurring at the same time. Like the Roman defeat of the Etruscans was happening during the classical period of Greece. But because the students studied Greece in a unit previous to Rome, they don't make that connection. My CT first talked to me about this idea, and he said it would be too much for the students that we have. I don't know that I agree with him because I wonder how complicated it would really be for them to think about the fact that these two events happened around the same date. That's not a super complicated idea, but it definitely is a higher order of thinking. The other text set organized their sources in a way that would make that a little more accessible and easier to conceptualize on paper. The AP World History Primary Source Reader organized its sources by time periods and then by regions. So the students can see that each area has a history in each time period, but then they don't begin to think that each history is independent of all the others. The early documents represented seemed to be more political or religious. I think this was because, honestly, it's hard to find sources from 4,000 years ago or, 2,000 years ago. It's harder to find solid sources that you can actually use for something. I experienced this in my own research when I was trying to write papers for history courses. But as time goes on, you have more and more sources that you can use. So the amount of sources that you have for Greece is tiny compared to the sources that you have for the world wars or something like that. Later, the sources seem to be more literary and cultural. They seem to give us a better idea of what the society was like, with less holes that we have to fill in with our own ideas. However, I did realize that these later sources tend to be more centered on Western perspective and what Western societies believed was important. As I thought about the master narrative for world history, it was kind of hard for me to think about because I've only ever been exposed to the Western perspective. And so I started to realize that in order for me to understand what the master narrative is, I would have to learn more about the other perspectives, about Asian perspectives or African perspectives, to understand what they saw was going on and what they experienced as their historical truth. This is interesting to me because I would want, if I was ever to teach world history, I would want to find more sources or more ideas from outside Western perspectives. But I don't know where I would find them. That's the challenging part because a lot of those sources tend to be in other languages if you look for them, which makes them inaccessible to me and my students that only speak English or don't speak that language. So I found this very interesting, and I'm still kind of thinking about how to get around it or how we can avoid using the master narrative as the only history that these students can be exposed to. Because I think once you start understanding that there's more perspectives, it's much easier to see history as a bigger picture and not just a timeline of events that happened in this one area. So the master narrative in world history is still a little bit elusive for me, but I'm definitely planning on doing more work and more research to understand how it's been discussed and how I can avoid the pitfalls of teaching world history when I choose to do so. Thanks.